It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley are here. It's Hello Paint, Goodbye Sets, and why you might want to rush to Windows 1903. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 618, recorded Wednesday, April 24th, 2019. Even-numbered Star Trek movies. Windows Weekly is brought to you by the Intrazone podcast from Microsoft, your bi-weekly conversation and interview podcast about SharePoint, OneDrive, and related tech within Microsoft 365. Get highlights on usage, adoption, and how SharePoint works for you. Subscribe on your favorite podcatcher today. And by Capterra. Find the right tools to make an informed software decision for your business. Visit Capterra's free website at capterra.com/windows. And by Atlassian. Atlassian software powers the full spectrum of collaboration between IT teams and the rest of your organization. Visit Atlassian.com/IT to see what IT can be by giving their products a try for free. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show that's getting ready for build. Yeah. Paul Thurrott.
You're getting a build.
You're getting a build. And you. Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley, and we are talking about Microsoft. I guess you kind of figured that out from the name. If you're more interested in Storm Windows, there's another podcast for that, I'm sure. It's 90 degrees here. It's so hot.
Is it really?
Are you guys sweltering?
No, this is literally peak spring today here.
Nice.
Yeah.
72
it's like
degrees.
Yeah, it's
65
perfect.
here.
It's perfect, and the blooms and the blossoms and the...
Yeah, everything's green.
Allergies.
Yeah, we went...
Allergies are right. Yeah,
allergies
exactly.
are big here, too, because it was very
Oh,
wet
man.
this winter.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it went straight to 90 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know. This climate thing, it's cray-cray. So I say we're getting ready for build because in a week and some days we are going to go to Microsoft in Redmond, and there's going to be a big developer conference, and we're all very excited, and we will be doing a number of things with that. We'll be streaming the keynote, the first keynote, the less technical one, right?
Satya.
Is that true?
The vision.
The
vision keynote. Yeah.
Will there be stretching is all I need to know.
I bet there'll be yoga.
Right.
I bet there will.
You said something that really encouraged me, which is that you guys are coming on after it, and that's scheduled to be over by something like 11:30 or something.
10:30.
10:30.
Yeah, it's actually pretty early.
I know.
So that makes me feel really good. Like the vision thing will be short. We'll get to you guys, and then. But then,
if it is, by the way, sorry to interrupt. I mean, that means they've listened to feedback.
well, it was a little long last year.
There was a big discussion last year about the length of that. So
3.5 hours, as I remember.
Yeah, they're doing it a little differently this year. So Satya does his thing, and then we do a little post keynote thing, and then you have a choice if you're at the show of two different keynotes. So there'll be an Azure keynote and a Microsoft 365 keynotes running at the same time in parallel. Those are the tech keynotes.
Okay. Yeah. I almost feel like I'd prefer to see those.
Well, yeah, most people would.
Yeah, so I'm almost thinking maybe we're covering the wrong keynote, but okay. Well,
but what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
I know they're not going to stream those, right?
Oh, well, then there you have it.
I don't think. Although I don't know that for a fact.
No, but I bet they won't. They will later, I'm sure.
Yeah, later they will.
They've been really good about making that stuff available after the fact.
Yeah.
Yep.
They'll do that.
Okay, well, we'll do the vision thing.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's a little bookkeeping, and then we haven't yet figured out when Windows Weekly will occur that week. Possibly,
we're working on that.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Hoping for Monday afternoon.
Yeah, that might be nice. But if you get your Windows Weekly a day late, that's why.
Listen, it could be Monday in front of an audience in a beautiful facility. It could be Thursday in our homes.
Your choice.
We don't know. It's going to be.
You pick.
It's going to be.
Or maybe
in
it'll be in that podcast dungeon that they had at Build a couple times.
The terrarium, the podcast terrarium.
Well, it'll be fun no matter what.
It will.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Yes. Now, let's get to the business of the day.
What is the business of the day?
Sets. Is Sets really over? I'm sad. if it is.
Do we have any funeral music?
Oh, we do. but tell me it's just delayed.
Sure.
I would like to tell you that.
Tell me it's really they're going to, but it was working, right?
Oh.
You were using it.
But it was based on Microsoft Edge.
Oh.
And it wasn't working that well, was it?
I thought it was fine. I mean,
You did?
By the way, do you notice this? Sets is an interesting thing to me because there was a lot of blowback from people who didn't want it.
Right.
And
yeah,
I
you
don't
don't have
feel
to
like
use it if you don't want it.
Exactly.
I
don't
think
understand.
I think people who tried it just felt like it's not intuitive enough and it works in a wonky way. And so they were like, is that the best you guys can do with sets?
I think so. I think I could be wrong about this, but I believe that the way they implemented it was as a kind of system-wide feature where any window could conceivably have arbitrary tabs in it that could possibly be for different applications or something.
Yeah.
And I think what
applications
most people,
or data, right? Or websites. Like you could do anything.
Yeah, you could mix and match. And I think what people were kind of looking for was, I just want to use this app with tabs, for that app.
Yeah.
And of course, then there were specific implementations. Like there were people who would say, look, I just want it in the File Explorer, or
exactly,
I just want it in the
console,
windows.
Right?
Yeah.
Or Notepad.
And I hear you. I hear you. But again, it's like any other feature in Windows 10. You don't have to use it. It's not in your face or anything.
Exactly. True.
Some people would find it to be of great use. I don't know that I would have used it that much, but I would defend it just because it doesn't get in my way.
Right. So let's give the backstory on this because
and maybe say what Sets is so that people understand what we're talking about.
Right. So Sets was this Windows management tool that Microsoft showed us in 2017, early 2017, I think, and they showed it to us the same time they showed us Timeline. So Timeline actually shipped as part of Windows 10 April update 2018. Yeah. And Sets did not. Sets kept being tested among certain groups of insiders, and then it wasn't. And with 1903, I don't believe it ever showed up as part of the test builds at all.
That's true.
Right.
It never did.
So this is funny. So here's what I heard. So several months ago, I got a random tip that said, I've heard you guys talking about Sets on Windows Weekly. It's dead. And you guys keep acting like it's not. And so I never wrote it up because I was like, oh, I wonder if it's dead or not. And, are people really going to care? I actually thought that. And so I just kind of sat on that. And then over this past weekend, Rich Turner, who is a program manager for the console, he didn't work on Edge.
Has been on the show.
He's been on the show, and he was answering a question somebody asked him related to Sets. And he said, here's his exact tweet: the shell provided tab experience is no more, but adding tabs is high on our to-do list. So a lot of people took that as him saying Sets is dead and we don't really care because in the console, we're going to just do our own tabs anyway.
I took that to mean, I hearing you say it now, I actually understand what he meant. But when I read that, I read it as the Sets that we were working on before is dead, and probably because of the whole Edge thing. But putting tabs into the OS is still on our to-do list. I think when he said us, he meant the console team, not the Windows team.
Yeah, he did.
So I wrote an article at the time when I sort of said, is Sets dead? Yeah. And I said, based on this tweet, it seems like it's something they still want to do. That was not the case.
No, that was not. Well, So then I went back to my contacts and I started asking around. I'm like, so what's the deal with Sets based on this comment? And they said, well, yeah, Sets is dead. And, he's basically saying we're going to still do something that looks like Sets in the Windows console, but he's not answering for all of the operating system. He's answering just for the console. So that's how I wrote it up. I said, I heard months ago Sets is dead. And then Rich Turner just happened to tweet this thing, which is about the console. So that makes me think tabbed experiences, that idea is going to continue, but it's going to be in the apps, right? Which to me is where it should be, right?
I get, right. Okay. So, yes, I agree with that. I think the multi-headed weird thing where you have lots of different apps in a single thing is a subtle different take on virtual desktops. It doesn't seem necessary. it's a little too complex. I get the notion you could have like a project window that has all your, whatever you're working on.
I use virtual desktops like crazy now that I'm
You
using
do?
Windows heavily.
Yeah. Yep.
Control Windows key, left arrow, right arrow is I live there. The one thing I miss, which we had in the Mac, is as soon as on the Mac, when you go full screen, it basically says, oh, that's a workspace all to itself.
Sure.
So you don't have workspaces with two things in it.
Yeah.
And I wish Windows did that, but that's very minor compared to.
Yeah.
And then
my issue with.
Sorry. I switched the Alt tab to include everything, so that I can see everything that's going on. So it's not really work group.
I wish you could save a workspace or a virtual desktop.
That would be really nice.
And I wish that you could persist a virtual desktop between reboots.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of what would Sets do that? Sets would kind of do that, wouldn't it? Would it save?
I don't know. We don't know.
We'll never know.
What if it saved it to Azure? It could do it, right? Somehow.
Yeah. Because then you could have your
you could,
workspaces all set up that you liked.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. And any machine, it would be like a timeline feature. It'd be something you could kind of resuscitate somewhere else.
Yeah. Right. So, the part that I think a lot of people kind of downplayed when, people immediately got all angry, like, oh my God, they're killing Sets. Like, here's another thing Microsoft's killing that I wanted and I loved. And
come on.
How could you say this? And what are you talking about? And people got really crazy about it. But
this is the definition of an enthusiast.
It is
somebody who cares that much about a feature that was never offered.
Exactly. But if you think about it from Microsoft's perspective, okay, to pull this off, they had to, the way they originally showed us Sets, the Office team had to buy in, right? Edge had to be bought in all big time. And right now the Edge team's a little busy with this Chromium thing. You might have heard of Credge. So
that's what really happened, right? Is the Credge thing?
Right, if you're picking priorities,
it was like a monkey Credge they threw in the
Should I do the Sets thing that doesn't exist yet, or should I worry about moving our browser to Chromium?
Yeah,
I don't know.
But the side problem here, and I think you will kind of allude to this in the notes, which is is this a problem? And the answer is to some degree, it's a little bit of a problem because Microsoft now has a rich history of promising things for Windows 10 and then silently ignoring them for a while. And then you suddenly just find out that they've stopped doing it. They're not very good about they're very good about announcing things. They're not very good about coming out and saying, hey, things have changed.
Did you see the statement they started giving to people? Okay. When people were asking, is Sets dead? Mary Jo and other people are saying Sets is dead. Here's their statement from a spokesperson. We've taken Sets offline from the Windows Insider program to continue to evaluate long-term while also needing to prioritize other work tied to Microsoft Edge. Okay, so that's as much of a dead statement as you're going to get. It's on the back burner. We have no timeline for it. We aren't doing anything with it right now.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they're not going to give you a statement and say Sets is dead. That's just not going to happen. It
should, by the way, because transparency is good, whether it's good news or bad news. Yeah. But the other thing, the reason I like Sets, and I don't mean for me, I mean just as a Windows 10 feature. Like I said, I don't think I would use it. Is just that it is a productivity focused feature. I think it speaks to the core of what Windows is now. And frankly, always was really, but it's a desktop feature. It would benefit normal people. Virtual desktops is nice, but it's kind of undiscoverable, and to normal people is just too daunting, I think, to ever use. Whereas tabs are a familiar user interface from browsers, and I think people could kind of wrap their heads around that. Multiple app tabs within in the same window, I think, would have been confusing to people for sure. So yes, I agree. If a future version of Windows may add a tabbed interface to the File Explorer, it sounds like a future version of Windows will add a tabbed interface to the console windows. It's great. There's nothing wrong with that. That's all good news. But say it, Microsoft. Just say it.
Yeah.
Well, and the fact that we have to go to Twitter to a guy I'm lucky enough to follow because I know him and I like the guy, so I get to find out about it. But I mean, that's it's not his fault. But I mean, that's no way to find out about something like this. And this is the thing. This is my central issue here.
Yeah. And, everyone was saying to me, well, you saw that statement they gave. That means it's not dead, right? And so I will just point you to 2 other examples where this exact thing happened. The Band 3, remember that product? Did Microsoft ever say they killed that product? No.
Right.
Andromeda, the dual screen phone. Did Microsoft ever say they killed it? No, they never even said they were working on it.
Right?
We're living in the Matrix.
Yeah. Well, we have mixed feelings because on the other hand, we also would like to hear about this ahead of time. Right?
Agree.
That gives us something to talk about, write about, think about, and give them feedback on. And so I don't want them to say, well, we better not say pre-announce anything. This is kind of the Apple way, right? And let's not say anything about anything until it's out. Actually, Apple's changed their tune too. Remember AirPower?
Sure.
2 years.
Well, yeah, they've done that a few times, actually.
Yeah. So I think it's not a bad thing, and I think enthusiasts just should get over themselves.
Yeah.
You know?
That's never going to happen, Leo. So.
No.
and by the way, we're enthusiasts. We've spent half an hour on this subject. I mean, we care.
Yeah. No, and the idea, if the idea of a tabbed user experience shows up, there will be people who say, see, they didn't kill sets. All I'm saying is the thing that we call sets now that people tested is gone. I'm not saying tabbed experiences as an idea is gone. Maybe that will still come forward. Maybe it will even be part of Edge someday, right?
Yeah, but Mary Jo, why do you lie? I think that's what we all want to know.
Why are you such a liar?
Why are you a lying liar who lies?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I have one guy say to me on Twitter, I don't know who your sources are, but I have sources too, and my sources say blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking up, I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
I
got a friend who works in the cafeteria of the lunchroom, and he says,
okay. I all I can say is I feel like I'm often the bad guy in these things. Like I'm the one who said, by the way, Andromeda's dead.
The bad guy in these things.
Yeah.
Right. By the way, Band 3, it's dead. Hey, I said
Mary Jo's fault. Microsoft's going to make it. Mary Jo said no. Mary Jo's email address is...
Mary Jo hates band. Mary Jo hates sets.
It's the different.
Why do you hate health so much?
It's the definition of shoot the messenger.
It is, right?
You're just, don't blame Mary Jo, guys.
Guys, I would like to see some more productivity things come to Windows. I'm all about productivity. Productivity is my middle name.
I honestly, sets is fine, but I think you could do better. And I think this workspaces thing is getting closer and closer. And I actually like Timeline. I leave that on. Yeah,
Timeline's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if I've used it ever, but I like it.
Yep.
But it integrates with workspaces because it also shows your desktops. So.
And you know what? If you really, really want sets, buy Groupie from Stardock.
Right, you can get it.
Yeah. Right, that's true. That's a good point.
Now, some people in the chat
that should have been the app pick today.
Some people in the chat were saying all we really want is tabs in Windows Explorer.
So you're probably going to get that.
Okay. I don't know why that's a big deal, but okay.
I've heard a lot of people say that too, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay.
Interesting. It just shows how everybody uses it different, uses their computer differently, and it just shows that. I am with Paul, though. I'd love a way to save workspaces and have it load automatically and say, you know what, when I boot up, I want this to be ready, this to be ready, and this to be ready. Because you guys are prototypical. All writers are, because you have, tools
millions
you're going to use. You've got a lot of tabs open. You've got, they have things that you always want to have there. Yeah. On machines that do that, typically on my Linux installs, I'll always have a browser, a command line, and an email open. Mm-hmm. And by the way, in Linux, you can set it up in GNOME desktop anyway. You can set it up each in their own window workspace, so that they're all running. And then I just press control down arrow, and I can go to the next one. And that works really nicely for me. I really I'm used to that. There is some analog that Microsoft could look to in other operating systems.
Yeah,
they could do this with the cloud, right? They are adding containers more and more to Windows, we believe. Like that's going to become more of part of the workflow in Windows.
The more I play with Docker, the more impressed I am with the potential for that.
If they do that, why couldn't they just have this become the successor to virtual desktop?
Yeah,
right?
Have a container that you open.
Yeah. That's
a great idea. I bet you there are super geeks already doing that.
I bet there are too.
I mean, honestly, if you think about virtual desktops are obviously full-sized full screen experience is you could have a windowed mode where there literally are tabs, and you can kind of whatever the keyboard shortcut would be. I guess they have them now for virtual desktops. It would be the same one, I guess, but you could just switch between them that way visually. That might be a little easier for a normal person. That's a thought.
One of the advantages too of containers is they're like sandboxes. So by isolating these processes, ideally, I would like to only install apps in containers. So if each app was its own container, you delete the container, the app goes away. There's no side effects. There's no DLL.
By the way, I think that is happening in Windows. I think that the sandbox feature is a step in that direction. I think the containers that Mary Jo is referring to are part of this future solution. I think this is where they're going with Windows.
And there's huge security benefits too, because as we know, sandboxes isolate from malware as well.
A lot of it's like using a VPN or whatever. A lot of it is performance related. You want to get past that kind of stuff. You want to make it seamless for users. And I just think it's inevitable.
Once there was hardware support for Hyper-V, and I think, the ironic thing is, don't you have to have Windows Pro to use it? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, but that's an arbitrary licensing decision.
Yeah, they could fix that. That's actually the main reason I bought Pro. That and BitLocker.
Yeah, I mean, remember back in the day, Hyper-V obviously started as a server feature, and then it became its own kind of standalone thing. But, one of the things they added to it was understanding of power management and, what all this stuff. You can run it on a laptop, and it's actually fairly efficient for what it is.
It's kind of, in a way, a hardware-supported version of what Microsoft wanted to do ages ago with, what was it, COM?
What was it?
The inter app.
Oh, COM. You like DCOM and COM? You mean like the component object model?
Yeah. Remember then they were going to have communications between these, but you didn't have hardware support for it.
I used to be able to open the COM management console, and the COM objects were all represented by little spheres. And once any one of their interfaces was accessed, the sphere would rotate in space.
Oh, neat.
So you could kind of watch it and see that it was happening.
Yeah. Honestly, that's the kind of thing you do to make Windows more modern, and you can slowly then abstract out all of the old horrible stuff underneath.
Microsoft's not very good at that, Leo.
But no, and they are. But this is a great way to do it because if you start moving things into containers, then I don't know. I'm having a fever dream. I apologize.
You're going container wild.
I am. I've got the container religion.
You do.
I think you're going to be happy the way Windows goes. I think that's the future.
Well, here's the best news of all. Microsoft Paint lives to see another day.
That actually is good news.
Don't joke about that.
I know
this
you
is
use
as important
it.
to me as Notepad is to Mary Jo. I use Notepad. I use Paint every single day. It is pinned to my taskbar.
Okay, really?
Yeah, really.
I mean, okay.
Yes.
I know you
single
do.
Day.
Yeah, okay. It seems like there'd be better tools, Paul.
You know what, Leo? I don't want to talk about this.
Now, you know how I feel when people criticize Notepad. It's like, but why don't you use blah? It's
Look, I'm still upset they added a ribbon interface to it, okay? It was perfect the way it was.
I know. It's getting a little
kludgy. It's a bitmap editor. You can edit bitmaps with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
it does a couple of things really well that I need a lot.
Is this a temporary reprieve, or is this like Groove or whatever? Is this like, we'll keep it for a little longer? Yes.
Well, remember they had said previously they were deprecating it. They were intending for Paint 3D to replace it, even though they're not really the same kind of application. And they had said at one point they were going to put it in the store. So they said, "Don't worry, it's not going away. You'll if you want it, you can download it from the store." And okay, that's fine. I would have done that, but I feel like like Notepad, Paint is this basic essential tool. It doesn't harm anything for it to be there. Why would you just leave it alone?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Is it 32-bit? Is that part of the problem?
Oh, no. This thing it's reasonably modern for what it is.
16-bit?
Yeah, it's 8-bit.
It's 8-bit.
It does 256 color graphics, Leo.
They've kept it up to date. So it's
it
not
has
that
a reasonably high resolution icon.
So it's not a lot of work, I mean, to keep it around.
It's less work to leave it alone than it is to remove it.
I think the idea was they were trying to force you to 3D paint, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't, it's not the same as Paul says.
And now that they kind of backed off the idea of consumerizing 3D through HoloLens and stuff, I feel like, okay, let's give them paint back, right?
Yeah, please.
By the way, I don't know if this came up when we talked about the Acer event a few weeks ago, but one of the conversations I had with someone from Acer was about remember they introduced a big premium PC line called Concept D, and multiple machines, multiple peripherals. Among those peripherals, by the way, were 2 new mixed reality headsets, Windows mixed reality headsets. And I said, I'm fascinated that you're doing this, higher resolution, et cetera, et cetera. But I said, has this thing really taken off to the point where it needs to be supported with 2 headsets, And they said, it's completely failed with consumers. They said, these are for businesses. That's why they made them, for business, not for consumer. And, to your point with, Paint 3D, et cetera, I mean, those tools and a lot of the kind of UWP type apps that are in Windows 10 are a little on the play schooly kind of side, giant touch friendly icons, and they just don't look professional. And, you can say what you want about Paint, but when you put that thing next to Paint 3D, one of them looks like a real productivity application, and the other one looks like something you'd stick in front of a kid to keep him busy for 30 minutes. Doesn't mean that I know there are fans of the product. I'm sorry, I don't mean to insult anyone that needs it or uses it or whatever, but it just doesn't have the same. It just doesn't have this. All complaints, by the way, to Mary Jo Foley at. It just doesn't have the same broad. I don't want to say appeal, but need, I guess, as just Paint. That's all.
Yeah. I like it. I like that they're keeping it. It gives me hope for Notepad.
Yeah, no kidding. Because if Paint goes,
I don't think Notepad
was
ever in any danger.
I don't think they'll do away with Notepad because developers like it. If developers didn't like it, I think it would be risky.
Honestly, so we kind of joke about this because they've been adding features to Notepad over the past year. If you care about Notepad, the last thing you want Microsoft doing is touching it. Like, just leave it alone.
Don't mess with it at all.
No, I just don't touch it. Yeah, don't touch it. Don't touch it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think developers
something stupid.
Probably use VS Code for Notepad instead, but
more now.
Yeah.
I don't use a Notepad to write like Mary Jo does, but I do use Notepad as well every day. Also, by the way, pinned to my taskbar.
To what? Edit your config.ini or what? Leo, to edit my plan file. But no, you know what it is? It's and by the way, I actually like Notepad better than, say, like TextEdit on the Mac. And the reason is it's just plain text. It's very simple.
Yeah.
It's not rich text.
No, TextEdit is not, and that is a big problem, actually.
Yeah, I can pipe something through that, copy, paste, paste, cut, and then bring it back somewhere, and it's
Unchanged.
Completely devoid of any formatting. I love that, and I use it a lot. I use it a lot, not just for that, but that's what it literally is, plain text. And the more that Microsoft screws with it, the more I could imagine them saying, well, now it supports rich text, and that will be the default mode, and there are font, and then it's like, okay, you screwed it up. It needs to be left alone. It's perfect. I think
it's got to be so hard for Microsoft because there's just all these constituencies.
Yeah. That was the problem with sets, right? I mean, when you think about it, how do you implement something like this, a core change to the OS, to the user interface, and how do you please everybody?
You can't.
We just talked about virtual desktops, a feature so complex that normal people will never find it, let alone use it. And then the power users that would want it can't save their environments.
Right.
It's like, it's who's pleased by this?
It's tough. I don't envy them. In some respects, I'd prefer an operating system that was stripped of all of that. And then if I wanted something like Paint, I'd get Paint.net or something. And if I wanted something like, Notepad, I'd get Notepad++. And just leave it at that. It's kind of like I want a TV that's a monitor. I don't want a smart TV.
Right.
And in some way, I feel like an operating system should be just a clean, stripped down thing that then each user can make their own. But I also realize there's a lot of users who aren't. They're not.
It's not just that. You have to be able to rely on someone clicks on a very common file format and the operating system's able to do something with it.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to support
Although for
plaintext.
years, people had to download Adobe Reader, which is not an ideal use case.
No, that's right. And by the way, Microsoft's original solution to that problem was to create an Adobe PDF clone, which would be built into Windows, and maybe it would just take off, And I remember many, many years ago, someone from the Office team told me that Microsoft had reverse engineered PDF and could have added support to Office. I mean, this is probably 15 years ago now, and didn't because, lawsuits and whatnot. Today,
by the way, Apple did do that.
Yep. And I guess it was pretty easy to do, but, Adobe was protecting its intellectual property, whatever. These days, web browsers are PDF readers. It's fine. But, we used to have to install increasingly terrible versions of Adobe Reader just to see PDF files,
Yeah. Edge does a nice job now, and I'm glad that they did that. I hope that Credge will not remove that capability.
No, it's in there. And I would say even Chrome does a good job with the PDFs. It's fine.
Yeah. And so Adobe there's still room for Adobe because, if you want to turn them into forms or you want to create them and all that stuff is,
Yep.
But print to PDF and open PDFs, that's basic functionality I think operating systems ought to have.
Yeah, and they do.
Maybe I'm stepping back a little bit then on my...
No, but they do. I mean, Windows has it.
They do.
Mac has had it, I think, since
Mac's
2001.
Yeah. And Linux has had it for years too. So.
Yep, it's built into Chrome now, so I guess you get it with Chrome OS as well.
So these two events, writes Paul Thurrott. Somebody named PT. These two events, Sets and Paint, speak to the good and the bad of Windows 10 today. Explain.
Yeah, I want to bring up my list because I want to make sure I don't forget any of this. But believe it or not, it was the news about Paint that set this off. It occurred to me that in recent months especially, that Microsoft has backed down from some of the most terrible stuff that they put into Windows 10, right? So as good as Windows 10 is, it has all this stuff in it that's terrible, right? Inbox advertising, crapware, privacy stuff. I think the privacy stuff is overblown, but people complain about the privacy stuff. The Cortana stuff, the updating stuff especially was a nightmare. But look at all the stuff they've just changed. They've adopted Chrome for the browser. They've given up on Cortana, decoupling it from search. They've definitely stepped back from the cliff on Windows as a service. That could be a little bit better, but good. They've, given Paint a lifeline. Not that that's a big deal for most people. I've not seen this myself, but according to some people, not all people, but if you do a clean install of Windows 10 version 1903, it doesn't have a lot of the really bad crapware that we've been suffering from the past 4 years. Remember, I think it might have been January 2015. Terry Myerson, and I think it was at that event. Maybe it was Bill that year, but sometime that year he announced, Windows is going to get Candy Crush. This was exciting at the time.
God.
We have since suffered through, I believe, 3 different Candy Crush games and one or more other games from that same company. I think it
comes with 2 versions of Candy Crush now.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
That is bad.
So apparently, that's finally stopping.
Oh, thank God.
And we'll see.
Steve Gibson a couple of weeks ago, he said, well, I get MSDN, so I found this thing called the LTSC version of Windows, and I installed it, and there's no Candy Crush. There's none of that stuff. But it's not available to end users. Unfortunately, I have received many emails from people saying now, how can I get that?
But actually, supposedly, starting in 1903, that's going to change.
It's going to be more like
people,
that? Oh, that would be so
Yeah,
good.
with both Home and Pro, that the Candy Crush games at least are gone. Now, I've heard from some who have seen them. So
you still get that King of Kings game or whatever it was.
Yeah. I don't know. So I got to...
Solitaire.
Paul, I have bad news for you.
Hold on. Let me just
looking at the build session list right now.
Oh.
There's a session called Lessons Learned from Building Candy Crush for Windows 10. I'm not making this up.
That's for developers. That's fine. That's for app developers or for game developers.
Come on, they're still celebrating Candy Crush.
The real lessons learned are what Microsoft learned when they put Candy Crush in Windows and how upset people. Yeah. So, and by the way, one of the other things
especially in the business version of Windows, it's like Excuse me, I'm trying to get some work done here. I don't want my employees to have access to Candy Crush on their desktops.
If I could just head off the obvious retort to this, which is you don't have to use them if you don't want them. You can just ignore them.
They're in the start menu. They're
in the start menu. Worse than that, they're in the system, which means that they get updated. Those are big apps.
Yeah.
And there's a price for that, and sometimes it's a literal price, but it's like you run into this on your phone. If you like, wow, like I have 150 apps on my phone. That's fantastic. Your phone is going to be burning hot in your hand today because you have to update every single one of those apps.
That's right.
One of the other nice things they've done in 1903 is they've dramatically increased the number of inbox apps, meaning the apps that come with the system, that you can uninstall, right? And so these crapware games, Candy Crush, etc., you've always been able to uninstall them, but now you can uninstall a much longer list of built-in applications.
Right.
And so for those people who want a cleaner system, not just because they're like minimalists or something, but because they literally don't want to have to manage and update these apps on a regular basis, you can actually just get rid of them. And that's another nice thing about 1903.
I think, Paul, to your how I set up Windows, which, by the way, I thank you for, and I used when I set up my new ThinkPad. You should add there's a simple 2-line PowerShell script that removes all Windows Store apps except for the Store app,
except for the Store, because if you remove that, you have to do some PowerShell to get it back. But I actually knew about that. The reason I didn't add that is because I don't feel that most people should get rid of all of them.
No, in fact, there's some useful stuff in there.
Yeah. Even like, for example, if you were to remove Groove, right, I don't think there would be any huge negative after effects. You could run, Windows Media Player would probably come up or something. But I find that to be kind of a pleasant application. I don't see any reason to get rid of it. It doesn't, harm anything, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'm sure in that article, because this is what I actually do. I do go down the start menu and I manually delete those crapware apps. I don't actually, let me think about this. I don't personally actually delete any of the built-in apps.
You like Candy Crush? You leave that in there?
No, those I do. Those I do. I mean, the Microsoft apps.
Yeah.
Like I don't go in and say, I'm never going to run Groove. I'll get rid of Groove. I'm never going to run movies and TV. I'll get rid of that. Right. I actually do leave those things.
But that's a manual
I tried
process.
to delete Xbox, but you can't. Right?
You need PowerShell. That's for whom this is. Run it as an administrator. It's a simple command, and it's all gone.
Well, all right, Joe, I have good news to you that I have to say I'm a little reticent to even mention, but actually in 1903 you can uninstall Xbox.
Really?
Can you really?
Wow.
Yep.
I'm excited. 1903 is looking
nice.
better and better.
Nice.
Is it getting pushed out?
No.
We'll talk about that in our next item.
In our next segment.
But
that's good news. So is it interesting? So it's really a cleaner Windows. I tell people on the radio show, and this has become a regular add-on to my, kind of 6 steps to securing yourself online, to not install anything, to install as few apps as you can. And this is true of a phone or a desktop.
Oh, yeah.
The fewer apps, the better, because each app adds, you mentioned the update issue, but also complexity and potential for hacking. And so if you're not going to use it, don't install it. And if you're
especially desktop apps.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cruft that can get on your system. And even if you do uninstall it using the built-in uninstaller that they provide, it can still leave remnants of itself.
Don't install it in the first place. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons, so because of what I do for a living, I install a lot of baloney, and I try it once and I never use it again, and it kind of builds up.
We're the guinea pigs. We're the canaries in this coal mine. Yeah.
Don't do what I do. But, I usually blow away my Windows installs every 3 to 6 months or whatever for that reason, because I do on purpose, I test things. That's what I do. But yeah, you're right. And same as not just PCs or Macs. I mean, it's phones, same thing.
Absolutely the same thing.
Way better off with as little on there as possible.
Yep.
Whatever that is for you. I mean, everyone has a different minimum line or whatever.
Let's see. And you want to talk a little bit about the inconsistency?
Yeah, so you may recall when Microsoft made those big changes to Windows as a service, I used the phrase something like, give me an inch and I want a mile, in keeping with that line of thinking, now that Microsoft has gotten rid of most of the major terribleness in Windows 10. I would say that the inbox advertising is still a little bit troubling, although that hasn't escalated in this version at least. Remember, they tried to be very aggressive about Edge, actually, if I'm not mistaken. We can kind of focus on smaller things now, right? Which is kind of neat. One of the big long-term concerns that people who use Windows have had about the system is that because it's like, strata that just kind of builds on top of itself, there are horrible inconsistencies all over the operating system. And there are user interfaces in there that date back to Windows 95. We're talking about Notepad. So I'm looking at the things that are pinned to my taskbar. I wrote an article about this. There are 14 icons there. There are 8 different styles of icons. 8. And some of them date back 20 years, right? The Notepad icon is from Windows Vista. It has a glass effect on it. It's not flat and facing forward. It's kind of angled. That was the style for 15 minutes back in 2006. The new Office icons are a different style. The built-in apps for calendar and mail and settings are black and white. Some of them are white or black with colors, like the store icons. Some of them are have rich gradients in them for some reason, like File Explorer. I mean, these things are all over the map. And I just focus on icons because they're visual and I see it every day and it's something that I think about. But these inconsistencies are all over the place in Windows. And I guess, again, because I will never be happy now that they've removed some of the really terrible stuff. I think it's time maybe to focus on the fit and finish a little bit more. Because it's never been a Microsoft strong point. This is the whole finish the job thing. I think with Microsoft, a lot of times they throw the thing out there and they forget about it. And then those things that they throw out there are all sitting there inconsistently, visually inconsistent with each other. And that's Windows. So I'm kind of hoping that they, over 1909 or whatever we're calling the next one, 19H2, 20H1, maybe this will be a focus now. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I agree. I like the new, we mocked the new Office icons, but they didn't do the ones that we were worried they were going to do, right?
Well, by the way, there's an interesting example of inconsistency.
Yeah.
They're only updating some of the icons, right? Okay. So when you have Microsoft
bizarre,
Office on your computer, you can scroll down the list.
Yeah.
Access, old icon. Excel, new icon. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, they're inconsistency is
that permanent? Microsoft's. Is that a permanent choice, though, or is it just prioritizing which apps people most likely have?
They have never shown off a new icon for some of the apps.
Honestly,
I'm not saying it doesn't mean they won't come.
If you locked a designer in a room for a morning, you could get them all redone. It's not that hard.
I think I could do it.
You should see the pace at which they roll these icons out across platforms. It's hilarious.
Come on. I mean, it's an icon.
You know how much money they spent doing those new Office icons? I bet multiple millions.
Focus groups.
They had a whole story around why they look like what they look.
I actually like them, but they didn't. But the ones you showed us originally, I wasn't crazy about. But the new ones, I like a lot.
They look nice. They're pretty.
And I can quickly grok which is which because they kept the initials in, and you know.
Well, they keep the basic colors always the same. Excel is always green. It's always blue.
Yeah.
The Fluent design system that I know Mary Jo is the biggest fan of is another weirdism in Windows 10 because it's like they spin a wheel. What's it called? Spin art. It's like and it kind of goes in a circle.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's just it's in some places, and then the next release comes out and it's like, it's a couple more places. And when we went back to some of the places it was in and we changed it a little bit. And it's kind of a slipshod approach to. You'd think you introduce a new design language for an operating system and you're like, okay, well, with this, we're going to switch to this. And it's like, no, it's a little back shadow here in the start menu. There's a little bit of gradient going on over here. And, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. It's like the right-click menu is another one. And one of the big inconsistencies in Windows, the style and color of right-click menus, depending on what you click on in Windows, completely different all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. I'm just looking for some consistency.
Yeah, that's all. That's all I ask.
No.
Yep.
Now that you've given me the inch.
It is kind of telling that once you go down this rabbit hole, you can find lots of posts on how to get Windows the way you want it. There aren't as many posts on Fluent design and my favorite icons.
There was a 15-year battle over the font manager that no one even knows exists in Windows 10.
Yeah.
It actually has now moved, I think, into settings, but was previously like a control panel application.
Yeah, I use it all the time.
Because it literally came from Windows 3X.
Yeah. I double-click icon, TTF files, and it pops up.
And you're like, what am I? Did I just go back in time? What is this? Yeah. It would be like opening something on a Mac and seeing that little Mac bomb thing come up.
Yeah.
It's that weird.
You actually have to praise Apple in this regard. They're so design focused. I wish they were a little more technology focused. They're so design focused, though. At least they have consistency in that regard.
They tend to, that is one thing that Apple does. You may disagree with the way they went, but they do tend to be a little more consistent.
They're heavily opinionated when it comes to design. Hey, we have a new sponsor, a little company you might have heard of called Microsoft.
Tell me more.
Actually, it's their podcasts. This portion of Windows Weekly brought to you by the Intrazone. Are you familiar with this podcast from Microsoft? It's really, it's great.
I don't really follow Microsoft, Leo. Please.
Yeah, nor do you have any, no love for podcasting.
or anything to do with podcasting. Yeah, exactly.
There was an article.
It's really not in my wheelhouse.
There was an article today in the Washington Post, Why I Hate Podcasts.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought, well, we've really made it now. If you could have an opinion piece in the Washington Post about how bad.
What has two thumbs and is why I hate podcasts? And there was a picture of me going.
It's like, it was, I mean, he raised interesting points. And some of the things I hate about podcasts, he hates. But his chief point was people stop listening to music and they listen to podcasts now. Well, cry me a river. You got a choice. Anyway, here's a podcast to add to your list, and a really good one if you're interested in SharePoint or OneDrive or Microsoft 365 technologies. It's called the Intrazone. Get it? Intrazone. Mary Jo, you should be listening to this.
I know. I'm like, SharePoint?
Yeah, how to get the most out of SharePoint, learn how it works for you. So every week, they do news and announcements. They have a topic of the week. Guest perspectives. This is a really well put, it puts me to shame. I mean, this is a polished, professionally done. They've got a, like standard set of things they do. They always have guest perspectives from various experts and users, also partners and customers. There's a partner, it's Microsoft, so there's going to be a partner highlight where they feature a partner from the strong ecosystem of SharePoint. There's a FAQ roundtable, frequently asked questions. That's fun to listen to. That you get a lot of insight from. And then they go on to talk about upcoming events, conferences, workshops. For instance, the SharePoint conference is coming up May 21st to the 23rd. If you're a SharePoint user, or more importantly, a SharePoint administrator, you've got to listen to the Intrazone. And if you're at all on the fence about going to SharePoint, you got to go to the conference. You can save $50 right now off the registration. Here's the short URL, aka.ms/SPC for SharePoint conference, aka.ms/SPC. But you have to use this code. Now, I don't know where this code came from. Maybe you guys do. Cashman with a K, all uppercase.
Yeah, Mark Cashman.
Oh, it's Mark. I was thinking it was like Cash, man. Mark Cashman. It's Cashman with an uppercase, all uppercase, Kashman, of course. Duh. And I was like, there's lots of cash. You save some cash, man. Subscribe to the Intrazone wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find it quickly. The Intrazone, INTRA, like intranet, INTRAZONE. And each week we're going to highlight a new Microsoft podcast, which is awesome. And then don't forget $50 off the SharePoint conference if you go to aka.ms/SPC and then use the code Cashman, capital Kashman.
It's the code Cashman.
Cashman. Mark Cashman.
Mark Cashman's a good guy, by the way.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah. Let's talk about 1903, because now you got me a little bit excited. First of all, when are we getting it? Do we know?
So if you're a mainstream user, quote unquote, you're supposed to get it in late May.
Oh, we got a way to go. Okay.
Yeah. And the reason is they added some extra testing in this time after what happened with 1809. And now it's sitting in the release preview ring, and Microsoft's trying to have more people test it before it goes out to the mainstream.
What's the asterisk to that little "it's sitting there waiting to be tested" thing that you just said?
Well, except
yeah.
last week it showed up on MSDN.
So it's actually released to some customers.
Right. It was like, it was so surprising. It happened last Thursday, and I saw a couple of people like Taro Elhonen and Zor, WZOR, start tweeting, hey, 1903 is on MSDN. And I'm like, that can't be right. It's supposed to be late May. But then I went back and looked at Microsoft's blog post about this, and they never actually said when it was going to come to MSDN. They said Volume Licensing Center. They said WSUS, SUS. They said Windows Update. They said mainstream users. And they never actually gave us a date for MSDN. But last Thursday, they started making it available to developers. And they were saying, hey, developers, here's the SDK for 1903. Start using this. So I guess that is the rationale.
Yeah. So what that announcement I saw, and I started writing up.
Me too.
And they were offering what they call a Go Live license for the shipping version in 1903, essentially. So in other words, if you write apps that take advantage of features that are specific to this version of Windows, they can be put in the store immediately.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of interesting. But then the actual post, if you look at it, they didn't list like the major new changes in the SDK. Instead, the person who wrote it said, here are some of my favorites. And then they linked to a post over probably on the MSDN website that kind of went through the stuff in more detail. And I was like, it's not actually all that interesting. So I ended up not writing the post. But then, as you note, I don't know if you asked, who did you ask on Twitter?
I asked Michael Niehaus, because he's like, it's on MSDN. And I'm like, is this a mistake, or did you guys intend to put it on MSDN today? Because
he thought it might be tied to that. To the
he said, I think it's tied to that developer thing. Yeah.
And I think that's correct. But I don't think they should have done it now. I think they should have waited until, I don't know,
it's kind of confusing, right? And, okay, so then I don't know if you know what happened yesterday. It showed up on the, what's it called? The Evaluation Center. So it's not like if you go to the Evaluation Center page, you don't see, you still see 1809. But Diamond Monday on Twitter posted a link to an ISO, and he's like, hey, this is on the Evaluation Center. So I'm like, wait, now 1903 is also on the Evaluation Center too.
So because we have to do this so often, I have a theory. And that is that obviously this thing that they did with pushing the new version of Windows to the release preview for an extended period of time is a complete deviation from the normal schedule. And that they have a whole infrastructure that's completely unlinked that is set up to do things in a certain way based on the normal schedule, and that these other things kind of happened outside of that, and that they're just not on the same page, but that is
I feel like even people who worked at Microsoft were surprised when it showed up on MSDN. Like it was like, it is, it's on MSDN. I'm like, it is. There it is. I think it's, I understand, like you're saying, I understand they want to gradually increase the number of people testing it just to have the biggest possible testing pool before they roll it out. But I feel like this is also kind of inconsistent too, because yes, MSDN is for developers, but I know a lot of smaller IT shops also use MSDN as kind of the way they get bits to start working with them, right?
Of course, yep.
And so I'm like, wait, so some people have 1903 now, but it's not really released yet. And it's going to change.
But if you want to, as a developer, you could write an app that targets 1903, and you could put it in the store, even though nobody has it yet.
Yeah,
so, have fun with that.
What would happen if you tried to install it and you didn't have 1903? Would it?
You wouldn't even see it. So
I get it. That's cool.
It's a little more nuanced than that, because obviously, as an app developer, you can probably do things where you say, if they have this version, you can expose this feature. But if you literally have an app that requires 1903, which no one would ever do, but if you did, and you were browsing the store with 1809, you wouldn't see the app. It just wouldn't show up.
So if I'm crazy, I can't afford MSDN. I used to get it. I loved it.
Yeah, it's expensive. Right?
Yeah, it's really it's like the first year is really expensive. Then it's $700 a year or something.
They used to just give it to reviewers, so we always had access.
That's why I had it. That's why I had it. Yeah,
it was wonderful.
Yeah, they stopped doing that. So, and that's, by the way, how Steve Gibson gets LTSC. because it's on MSDN, which the Microsoft Developer Network. It's a series of disks and tools you get if you pay enough money to be a developer and get those. But you say the evaluation center. But
what are you asking? Are you
I
asking
want it.
Well, there's an easier way to. There's a
I
better
could
way
get the insider version. Should I do that?
But it's the shipping version. It's fine. So what you would do is download the ISO for the shipping version of Windows 10.
Oh, it's
install
available?
Windows 10.
Oh, okay.
No, it's 1809.
Oh,
but then you just put your PC in release preview, reboot, update, get the new version, get it out of pre.
this is what you were talking about last week. Do the open the window.
You can do this right now.
It flies in, then shut the window. Slam the window shut after it flies in.
That's right.
It is about windows. Are those double hung windows, or do you like the windows that got to your sash?
The triple pane.
Triple
so you
pane.
Don't hear the noise screaming from inside.
It is all about windows. Okay, so there is you just open the window, let it come in, close the window.
Yeah.
This is, you have to understand, it sounds silly. I know people like this sounds stupid, but this is literally a window of time, and it's just a temporary thing.
Yeah.
And normally, under the normal schedule, that version would probably be on download.windows.com right now. But because they're holding it up for a little bit extra, we have, let's say 4 weeks extra or something. It's fine. It's not a big deal. If you happen to need it right now for some reason, I don't think anyone actually needs it right now. But if you do,
it sounds like I want it since it's clean.
Yeah,
cleaner. Right?
You can do it. It's not gonna. It's an extra step for sure. But
do I have to install from the media thing? Can I just do it on my existing 1809?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, you can do it from. I'm just saying, if you wanted to clean install,
if you want to run, if you want to run release preview.
Oh, that would be the way to do it, to clean install, because it's clean. It'd be like taking a bath in dirty water if you don't.
Well, if you think about it like from the Mac standpoint, because how I really am interested in the Mac.
I know.
If you restore your Mac to some version of Mac OS that came with it, and then you go to the store. Well, actually, now you go into System Update or whatever. But however you do it, you check for OS updates.
Yeah.
You're going to get the latest version that your Mac supports, whatever it is, right? And so it's an extra step, but it's whatever. You get
nice
there.
To do the clean thing. Yeah. And maybe I'll do that.
If you're a normal person, just wait.
Just wait. Just
wait, because the reason Microsoft is holding it back is because of all the trouble that happened with 1809, and you don't want to be that person who gets the bad build that deletes data.
That's true. You don't want to be that person. But you know what? It's looking like this time.
It's looking good.
Well, I
right?
shouldn't say anything, because you know what's going to happen. They're going to wait 6 weeks. It's going to go to the public, and then there's going to be a problem.
Somebody's going to find something. Yep.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know. This one is tracking pretty well, I would say. I think with the previous couple of releases, there were indications in the Insider program that something was wrong, and people were not paying attention.
Yeah.
And anything could happen, but I'm not getting that vibe this time. So.
Yeah.
It's like Star Trek movies. Some of them are terrible and some of them are great.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote you. Windows 1903. It's like Star Trek movies.
It's like Star Trek 4.
Star Trek 4.
That one was good.
The one with the whale.
Star Trek 5 was terrible.
Yeah, right. No, it sounds. I think I might want to get 1903. Normally, I would really resist this because, God, this would have been a mistake for people if they'd done it with earlier. I'm thinking of 1803 particularly, but
no, I think obviously you're all set. You will have no problems with this, and I think for you there are some things in there you would find interesting,
right?
Like the sandbox.
Sandbox,
yeah,
right.
Yeah,
yeah. I am particularly happy about the fact that Paint doesn't have that little thing that says it's going to die anymore. So it's a little less annoying.
Did it have like a tombstone on it?
No, it had a little support note kind of thing.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And you want the emoji, the new emoji, I know, also. Like, that's a key.
I have the new emoji everywhere else. I don't know why I shouldn't have it there.
Yeah, the new emoji. That's important.
It is. It's key. It's key to Paul's life.
I use emoji a lot. It's a non-verbal
I like the
form.
poop emoji to always be up to date with the latest standard of poop or whatever they use.
Paul.
Come on. I try to send him a lot of emoji.
I was just going to say, like, you have no idea how many emoji that Mary Jo.
Oh, see, I knew I had a kindred spirit.
No, I just am like trying to get him used to it as a normal way of interacting,
And it's funny. I don't feel like I'm getting used to it.
You're not. Every time I send it, he just is like, I can't believe you just sent me that.
It's always some like animated penguin or a hedgehog or something.
Yeah.
So you have the new emoji.
I just use the Skype ones to send those
Skype
annoying
has
ones.
She wields it like a weepon, Leo. Of course she has it.
I wield the emoji like a weapon.
I go to war with the army I have. You know, it's her theory.
I feel like that's the next train song. She wields the emoji like a weapon.
Yep. You know, the emoji is mightier than the sword.
Yeah. I'm sorry. You guys crack me up, man. It's cute because I don't think you liked each other at first. Now you're like best of friends.
No, we hated each other.
At first, it was
I don't even
like
know why, you know?
oil and water.
I know why.
Okay.
Why?
Tell
me why. Now I gotta know.
Just think about us. Like, are we really people who you would think are compatible, or are we like the odd couple?
No, but it's great because you've bonded, and it's so great. It's
Call
just great.
of Duty, Notepad. Come on.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. No, you're right. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, and yet
here we are.
You mix oil and vinegar. What do you get? A great salad dressing.
Ken's Italian. Yeah.
Plus, we are both massholes. I think we have that common background.
That does work in our favor.
Self-loathing massholes, since you've both gotten rid of the accent and the towns. But okay,
that's right.
Yeah. I told you why I got rid of my accent, right? I told you the story.
No,
I was working at a bank in Phoenix, and I was talking to somebody at the bank, and this guy we also worked with was kind of walking by, but he was looking at me as he was just, I could see he was looking at me, you know. I was like, what? And he says, you know, you could do a really good version of that ask not what you do for your country speech.
Ask not what your country
And
can
I was
do.
like, jeez. And I was like, okay.
Kennedy.
Yeah, and I was like, first of all, John F. Kennedy does not have a Boston accent. But I sort of resolved that day.
What does he have? That's not a Boston accent.
Yeah, it is. Come on.
Ask not. He has a Brahmin accent.
And by the way, Paul, you haven't gotten rid of your accent.
Okay.
It emerges occasionally.
It does. So does mine. After a few beers, suddenly I'm dropping R's like
it's hard to get
business.
rid of. I even
it is.
am a trained announcer. Well, untrained anyway. Occasionally I'll say room.
Yeah.
Room, I'll say instead of room. I'll say orange instead of orange. Little things like that leak through.
If I'm particularly inebriated, sometimes I will hear myself say something with a Boston accent, and then I will just laugh because I sound ridiculous. You know what I mean?
You sound like
you hear it come out of your own mouth.
That's funny. Let's see. Back to Windows. Early release of 1903 on MSDN seems to be linked to the calls for devs. You started talking about that already.
Yeah.
Writing.
Yeah. So that's what we think. They never actually said.
But if you put it out on MSDN, it is a way of saying, hey, look, here it is. Quick, start working.
It kind of is.
What are is sandboxing the big technology that you'd want developers to start using? Is that it? What is the technology you want people to use?
Right. Like what's in there that they want developers to
So that's not, so here's the deal. I don't believe there is a single giant thing or some list of the top 5 huge things. That's not really the point. Honestly, the biggest thing for developers right now with regards to Windows is that a lot of these SDKs and APIs that were only available to UWP are being brought backstream to WPF and WinForms, and desktop development. And so they're making that stuff much more broadly available. And so, remember the conversation we had with Gerard from Corel. They basically just make desktop applications. I realize they have a web app now too, but they look at these SDKs and they look at individual little features. And it's not like a big bang thing, but Microsoft has an AI engine that's built into Windows. They have something simple like a spell checker that's built into Windows. They will use those components in their own apps rather than develop their own or keep their own going, because now it's part of Windows. And so at some point when that version of Windows has a big enough user base, they'll switch over to that. Mm-hmm. So I don't believe it's not, in the past, remember, there were always these big bang features with every version. They kind of stopped doing that. And so I don't know that there are humongous individual features that would be broadly popular.
Yeah. There's stuff in the SDK, right, that developers would care about in terms of, make it what their apps look like with Fluent and things like that.
Yeah.
New APIs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like I said, I looked
So
at that post I ended up writing about, and that person's favorite features. I was like, what is this stuff? It didn't even seem that interesting to me. But
they do say don't do it if you have an SD card inserted.
Yeah,
which is weird.
That was super weird.
I have a theory though, because I remember that on Windows Phone they had real problems with SD cards.
That's right.
Remember that?
I remember that too. Yep.
And I mean, I don't know how that applies, but I guess they don't just say SD cards. They say remove your SD cards, but also remove any USB.
It's removable. Device. It's removable storage, essentially, right?
Yeah, and I think that's why you had trouble with it on Windows Phone, is because you couldn't count on it being there.
Right. They said this was, and how they told people this is also strange. They just updated a support document, and it said, we are having problems with, quote, inappropriate drive reassignment. Yeah. With the May update.
Yeah. No, because it confuses the operating system. It was here, and now it's not. What's going on?
Well, if you think about, I mean, not to get too far into the weeds here, but I mean, a disk can be laid out a certain way with different partitions. Some of those things get drive letters associated with them. Yeah. Those things don't necessarily survive reboot, so they might be reordered in a reboot, such as when you're upgrading.
And you don't want to put critical files on a drive that's going to disappear.
That's right. That's right. I think the way it works, if I'm not mistaken, is that if you just won't get the update, right? So you wouldn't even notice this, I guess, right? You're not going to get an error. You're just not going to get the update. Yeah. Is that right?
Right. What does it say? Microsoft's blocking the update.
Right.
Yeah, see, I on my ThinkPad, I have the craziest partition system because I have 2 drives in it. I ended up upgrading to 2 1 terabyte drives. Windows and Linux coexist on drive 1.
Do they though? Do they coexist?
Well, I screwed one thing up. I made 2 UEFI boot partitions. I don't know what's going to happen with that. And then the D drive is accessible to both, which is nice. So I have a terabyte data drive that either operating system can look at. So basically, we have 2 512 gigabyte partitions for Windows and Linux and 1 terabyte of data. But I'm thinking if I go to 1903, that may be another cause for concern, even though they're not removable drives. The partitioning scheme is goofy.
I think you should be one of the test cases.
I will.
No, you can't. You're not going to have problems.
I'll image the Linux stuff, and then if I need to, I can wipe the drive. And
this is an M2 type SSD. Yeah. That's not a removable drive. It's there.
But it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens.
You're not going to have a problem.
Yeah. It's a nice way to do it, and I don't have to use Grub to mount it. I choose the operating system, by pressing F12 on boot. And
okay. You just redirect it manually.
I say.
Does it always go to Windows otherwise, or how does it work?
Well, you can do either if you want, but I have it set so it goes to Windows unless I override it and say no. Go to.
Yeah, because Windows would wipe out Grub, right? If you did like an OS upgrade.
Yeah, that's the problem. You can't do Linux then Windows. Windows says no, that's my master boot record. Yeah. And the UEFI is really kooky. In theory, you should have only one UEFI boot sector. And it's got to be shared between Linux and Windows, but that's weird. So I don't know.
Remember when UEFI was designed to keep Linux off of computers? I miss those days.
Yeah. Well, you have to turn off secure boot. You do have to turn off secure boot.
Oh, you do. You still have to.
Okay, you can still use UEFI, but because all Linux supports that now. But you have to turn off secure boot, or it won't boot. Wow. I guess you could get assigned. You could somehow get a signed version of Linux and add that cert to the BIOS and. I'm sure there's ways to do it.
That seems like a normal thing for somebody to do. All right, Mom, listen to me very carefully.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You I don't know what key you have to hold down on your computer, but it's going to be one of these 3 keys. So
I say that on the radio all the time. Yeah. It's either escape, delete, F1, F12.
Yeah, that's the worst. Seriously, can we have a standard for that?
Just one, please.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I had a brand new computer. I'd never seen the BIOS setup screen because I couldn't figure out.
Yeah, you try every key like you're mashing like 3 keys at once. Sometimes you actually get into it, but you don't know why.
I don't know how I got here.
Which key hit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now I'm feeling pretty good. I really have that ThinkPad nicely set up. It's really great for both Linux and Windows. I've got Penguin on Windows. I've got
Penguin.
It's good. I'm very happy. And honestly, it's a better experience, frankly, than any Mac I have. Unfortunately, sad to say. But I know all you Windows people will be happy to hear that. Our show today brought to you by Capterra. I think all the time about my experience when I first went to a radio station in San Francisco, KNBR. This was in 1987. PCs have been out for 6 years. Macs have been out for 3 years. They were using an old PDP-8 with a giant 8.5-inch floppy to do their music playlist. I was the music director, so I get ushered into my office and say, there's your computer. The software's on this floppy. You put it in, you close the floppy door, you turned on the computer, the head would go, and you would make the music playlist on a teletype printer. Well, it was probably a dot matrix printer, but it felt like 1987. First thing, but I think all the time about people who are working in businesses where they still are using line of business software that requires XP or IE8. You see it all the time. Oh no, this needs ActiveX. You got it. So this is a mission of mercy I am on because I feel your pain. By the way, first thing I did is, I don't know, something went wrong with that 8-inch floppy. It doesn't seem to work anymore. And they got me a PC. If you are in the situation, don't break your old computer. Go to Capterra. It is the leading online resource to help you find software for your business. Guarantee you there is better software, up-to-date software for your business. A lot of it now runs in the cloud, which means it doesn't care what operating system you use, but you have your choice. There are literally 700 categories of software at Capterra.com for every possible business, from dog grooming to they do have yoga, for sure, yoga studios, CMS, email marketing, IT service, SEO, workflow management, email, any veterinary, dentist, whatever it is. If you're sitting there looking at software from the last century, Capterra.com. And here's what I love about it. First of all, it's very easy to say. You do the search, the basic search for the software you're looking for, and then they have checklists so you can filter it by product rating, by the number of users it supports, how it's deployed, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, the features you want. You want customer management, appointment, whatever. And then you can actually say, it'll narrow it down to the ones that do exactly what you want. Then you could say, let's look at this one, this one, this one. You can pair up to 4 side by side. But here's the best part about Capterra, the thing that really makes it absolutely a must-use. 850,000 reviews of products by actual users. And they're dead honest, right? Because they're the people sitting there, using the software. So they'll tell you where the gotchas are, where the good stuff is, the bad stuff. 30,000 new reviews every month, they're on average. So these are up-to-date reviews. Capterra verifies every review so that it's the real deal. It's not from a competitor or something like that. It really gives you the confidence. We should definitely try this. This is a good one. Capterra believes software can make the world a better place because software can help every organization become more efficient and more effective. And why suffer with out-of-date, frankly, insecure software when you can get something new? And here's the best part, and I always save this for last. How much would you pay for a service like that, right? It'd be worth $30 a month, $100, I don't know. It's free. Free, like in always free, like it costs you nothing to use ever. They don't even there's no upsell, right? It's the leading free online resource to find the best business software for you. I hope you're convinced. I want you to try it. I would like to give you an offer, right? Normally our advertisers say free for a month or free for you. It's free forever. So there is no offer, but do me a favor, do Paul and Mary Jo a favor, use our special URL. That way they'll know you saw it here. Capterra.com/Windows. That's it. Capterra. Capterra.com/Windows. Capterra makes it easy to discover the right solution for your specific needs and do it fast. Capterra, software selection simplified. Capterra.com/Windows. Please use that URL. We thank Capterra for supporting us, and we thank you for supporting us by using that special URL. On we go with the show. So we've been talking about Credge. Been using Credge very happily. It's good. And Paul, you kind of always raise this notion of, well, Credge is really because Microsoft wants to compete with Chromebooks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's this is just a theory of mine, but not that they want to compete with Chromebooks, but that one of the main drivers behind Microsoft adopting Chromium is to better compete with Chromebooks. In other words, we've tried things that are not really Chromebooks and they really haven't worked. What if we just make a Chromebook? And we talk a lot of things about we talk about a lot of things like Light OS and these Andromeda devices and so forth. And the more I think about it, the more it looks to me like they're going to combine some of the things we've just talked about, like these containers and so forth, to run Windows apps on top of the system, but that the main simplified Light OS system is basically going to be Edge, meaning Chrome, meaning a Chromebook. Mm-hmm. And it opens up some interesting possibilities. I actually just got a couple of Chromebooks in for testing, and it's really interesting these days being able to run Android apps on Chrome. And it's hard for me now to look at Chrome and not see it as Edge, right? Because they're kind of the same browser. But, when you think about the stuff that's missing from the web app world, and then the stuff that is available on mobile, you kind of get a complete picture there, right? There's a lot of great games on mobile, for example. So you can play games. I was playing Valiant Hearts, that game I recommended, years and years ago. Is available on Android, so you can play it on the Chromebook. A lot of those racing games, etc. Microsoft mobile apps, like Microsoft Word and Microsoft Outlook, are available on Android, and thus are available on Chrome OS. All right, so they're not as full featured as like the desktop versions you get on Windows, but they are better, in my opinion, than the the web apps. And I've often said this, I've been using the Windows 10 Mail app, which I hate. And I would love to run, I use Outlook Mobile on my phone and I love it. I'd love to run that app on my desktop.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't make that available on the desktop.
What if they will be able to? It's, right. I think this is, I think this might be it. And so I'm just curious. I think I've talked about this a little bit before, but I wanted to see what you guys thought about this theory. If you think that this is where they're going with it, because I think I do. I think this is.
Yeah, I mean, if you combine Credge and say Centaurus, which is Microsoft's rumored dual screen laptop that's coming, that has screens on both sides of the laptop.
Right.
That could be a Credge book.
Right. And when you have a system like that is by nature, at least just web apps, right, and possibly some other things, but let's just say at least just web apps. Suddenly, an ARM-based platform becomes a lot more viable, right?
Sure. Yep.
And when you have a system that doesn't look like Windows, and so you don't have those expectations that you have in Windows, that the simplified capabilities that you get from, say, Windows 10 on ARM with regards to printing and the inability to install utility applications and so forth, you wouldn't really expect that. You would use whatever's built into the system.
Yeah. If they do a Centaurus-based Credge book, it would be like that super expensive Pixel book. It wouldn't be cheap, but you could have other manufacturers make cheap ones, right?
Yeah. Yep. And by the way, for whatever it's worth, I mean, I think this is something we've seen in the Chromebook world as well. Obviously, cheap has its place in certain scenarios like education, whatever is important. But I wouldn't. I think one mistake that Windows users, especially the people who don't believe that Chromebooks are a threat or whatever, I think they equate cheap with Chromebook when in fact expensive and simple is or at least not. It doesn't have to be more expensive than Windows, but something that is about as expensive as a Windows laptop, but is in fact a simpler system, I think would find an audience.
Yeah, I do too.
So I wouldn't.
Starting with me,
either.
Right? I'd be the perfect audience for that.
Yeah, I had this conversation with my wife. I have very specific needs, and of course, I write about Microsoft and Windows, but.
Yeah.
I told my wife I had specific needs too, but she didn't.
This isn't a marital show. We can't help with that. But I think it's important that you keep that out in the open. My wife is a writer, and she doesn't do anything around graphics, and she stores everything in the cloud. I mean,
you probably could still have Paint, frankly, on a Credge book.
Yes. Oh, there are excellent web-based Paint type things. I mean, I hate to say it's inevitable, but I mean, for someone like my wife who is normal and she's smart, but I mean, she doesn't care about technology, and she's infamous with Windows for like moving the little "you need to upgrade" dialogue over to the corner so she can't see it anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
but
a
she
Chromebook
could use
would actually
Office
make
for the web on it,
Right. Totally.
Chromebook would make tons of sense for her. She also uses an Android phone, so there's that nice integration there. A Chromebook that was managed by a Microsoft account instead of a Google account, I honestly believe for some size audience is the thing that puts this over the top. And that's what Edge is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean,
also,
you got to ask. I mean, there's some obvious reasons why they're doing it, but you got to think that losing that huge education sector to Chromebooks has made Microsoft sit up and take notice. And I think what you say makes perfect sense. In fact, I'd buy one. That's what that's honestly what the Surface Go should have been.
Yeah, and by the way, maybe it is what it becomes. They may have been constrained by what Windows was when they shipped that thing.
Right.
You can only do so much with it, but
it'd be a perfect.
That would be a much more viable device with a lighter platform on top of it for sure.
Yeah.
Windows Lite plus Credge.
Windows Lite could literally be Credge.
That's the question.
It's
do you
like
do
Credge OS?
Do you do what Google did with Chrome OS, which is it's the browser's the interface, or do you have?
Right.
And Google's kind of moving. By the way, I should point out, Google's more moving in the direction of making it like an operating system.
Right, I was going to say, so the shots I've seen of Light OS look very much like Chrome OS. And so if people aren't familiar with Chrome OS, you literally don't boot into a browser window. There's a taskbar. It expands differently. It shows you the apps a little bit differently. You know, they don't have a start. They actually used to have a start menu. Now it's a panel that comes up from the bottom. Its search is obviously integral. A lot of tray area stuff around notifications and all that, floating windows if that's what you want, file manager. But yeah, I mean, the windows that open, even if they don't look like browser windows, are in fact mostly browser windows, right? So you can run these web applications and they look like apps. They are apps, but they're web apps. They're not native apps running on the device. This would work. I think it would work great. I mean, I have some specific needs, but honestly, if there was a graphics thing that made sense for me, I could switch to this thing. You know, I'm not going to do it now. I'm not going to do it with a Chromebook. But if Microsoft makes a Chromebook, and I'll go, you know, and of course, for consumers, it would be a Microsoft account, but it would also be an AAD account for businesses.
Right.
You'd have to say all the management policies. I mean, I think it's just sitting there waiting to happen. I think this has to be the future.
Can't disagree with you. I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, and one thing that came up with the whole set story earlier this week was some people believe, I think Windows Central has said this publicly, that sets was going to be part of Windows Lite. But what if a set-like experience still is part of it, and comes to Edge at some point, the new Credge, you know? So it's possible that it could show up that way.
Right.
I can dig where you're coming from.
Or it could be virtual machines running on top of Lite, and that's how you get 132 apps on there too.
Yeah, or it's all running in Azure, and you have a thin client.
Yep. Virtual desktop.
What I'm experiencing right now is unfamiliar for me because you're both agreeing with me. Not that you are disagreeable, but most of my interactions online these days are in a slightly different bent, and I'm not sure how to react.
You're among friends here, Paul. It's okay. It's a safe space for your weird fantasies.
I also have marital things.
It's very specific needs I'd like to talk to you about.
I'm glad to hear that.
No, I think this makes perfect sense. I love this idea. And it honestly is what the Surface would say. Now, here's the question. Would I be able to download it and put it on my Surface Go and kind of retrofit it and make it this kind of Edge book? That I would do that because I don't use the Surface Go very often.
You know, I don't see why not.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
I mean, to me, this would be like the difference between server and Hyper-V server.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
They offer these as separate downloads. You can put them on the same hardware. Why not?
They got my money for the Go.
Yeah. I really do think it would make the Go a more interesting device.
Absolutely. I want to use that thing. I got it with LTE. I've got the Google Fi chip in it. I mean, honestly, I really, it would be my go-to as I'm running out the door laptop.
Yep.
But it's just too slow. It's painful.
Right.
Can't use it.
What do you think the possibility is that we'll hear anything about this at Build?
So some people believe that we will hear a lot about Windows Lite at Build, or at least see it. So my thinking is, if they do that, it'll overshadow everything else they announce, because that'll be the only thing that journalists will write about.
Right.
So they might not. Yeah.
I think if they do it, if they do it, it means they have no news for Build. And if they don't do it, I will not be surprised.
Okay.
So far, so Microsoft's been adding sessions to the Build online site. And so far, there's still only like 145 sessions up. There's supposed to be about 400 sessions. So there are a lot of things we haven't seen yet about Build.
Yeah. And they always do this. They don't want any big surprises to be revealed too early.
Right. Hopefully there were big surprises.
And not just of this thing is so long, we need to do stretching exercise variety.
Yeah.
They can't, because Paul and Mary Jo are waiting in the wings. We can't keep them waiting. Can't keep them waiting.
I just hope it's Tech Intensity 2.0 this year.
Dude, no.
Dude.
No. That phrase, I would like that phrase to be banned from the Microsoft buzzword lexicon. Although Michael Gillett, who you know, he made a buzzword scorecard for Build already, and Tech Intensity, I believe, is on there.
Is it the center square?
It should be.
The center square on Build Bingo. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
What is this Express Logic? What is that? What's that all about?
This was a really interesting purchase by Microsoft that I think a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, it's an IoT thing. Who cares? So Express Logic makes real-time operating systems. In fact, they make one that's really well-known and popular in the RTOS world, if you're in that world. It's called ThreadX. Supposedly, ThreadX has 6.2 billion deployments to date, and it's an
Wait a minute. That's one for every human in the world.
It runs on microcontrollers, right, that are embedded in things.
Is it IoT?
It's IoT stuff, yeah. So if you think about this, Microsoft's increasing its footprint in the IoT space. They had this thing called Azure Sphere that we've talked about. So that's Microsoft's own Linux-based microcontroller operating system that phones home back to Azure for security reasons. Now they've got this. And they say these two things are going to exist in parallel. They're not going to replace one with the other. So if you look at it, Microsoft's like kind of cornering the world on RTOSes, which is very interesting. RTOSes, real-time operating systems. Doesn't everyone know about RTOSes?
I don't know. Is it like a data lake?
I know that BlackBerry, when they were failing, made a very smart move to buy QNX, which is also a real-time operating system. And that's kind of saved BlackBerry, I think. I mean, a lot of people use QNX, including in cars.
They used it themselves, although that was apparently the least popular option, their own operating system. RTOSes are the future.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be an RTOS in your Thin Credge client.
Yeah, there we go.
You got your RTOS in my Thin Credge client.
Wow.
Yeah, but again, when Microsoft talks about what they're doing in operating systems, a lot of people just think desktop operating systems, but they've got this whole other thing going on over here with what's happening in the microcontroller world and IoT space. And that for them is a huge, huge emphasis. Intelligent cloud, intelligent edge. That's the edge part of this with the small e, not like the E in Credge, not that one. But yeah, this is a big deal that they bought this company. They're in San Diego. It shows to me that Microsoft's really serious about trying to get into the whole, we're an OS vendor for the IoT space part of the world.
But how does it impact Xbox, Mary Jo?
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Does it? Is there an Xbox angle? No.
None. He's just sad we don't have any Xbox in the notes today.
You have no idea how hard I tried.
He did. He was like scrambling for a note.
Well, I can tell you that my 16-year-old did something quite surprising the night before last.
Okay.
His cousin, who's 19, drove up about 8 o'clock at night, said, okay, let's go. They went over to GameStop.
Wait, what?
To pick up day of release of Mortal Kombat. Get ready for this. I said, what version is it? 11.
Yeah.
On disc.
Why?
I didn't have the heart to say, you really don't have to, because frankly, I want to get him out the door doing something, anything. Because otherwise he just sits in front of the
Do you get like a free Kaja Gugu CD with it or something?
Yeah, you oughta. There ought to be something.
AOL.
But
exactly.
I thought that was really retro. I felt like, wow, this could be 1995.
I would think the only reason someone would go to a GameStop these days is to watch it be demolished.
Well, there is an argument. So somebody called the radio show a couple of weeks ago and said, well, okay, what about this discless Charday, the One Box S?
The Charday.
Charday version.
Yep.
Sad.
Sad.
Also known as sad.
He said, would you recommend it? I said, yeah, because, well, ask yourself, when's the last time you bought a physical disc to play a game? Nowadays, even if you do.
Your son's like, last night.
and then Michael says, last night. No, even if you do, I bet you, I didn't ask, but I bet you when he got home, put the disc in the Xbox One, it downloaded more than 9 gigabytes worth of updates, right?
Definitely.
So you might as well just download it in the first place. But here's the one argument against that. As long as there is a GameStop, there is a market for used discs.
That's true.
That's the only, and that's, by the way, why Microsoft doesn't want to do it either, right?
Yeah, but okay. Anyway, yes, you're right. You're right.
That's the only reason. And then if you don't mind playing older games, you could go buy a used game for less money. Although,
you're probably okay at Xbox One, but the previous like Xbox 360, it's a real dicey proposition to be playing games on disc on that.
Because it gets scratched. And anyway, Microsoft's kind of handled that by deep discounts on older titles. So I don't even know if you'd save money these days buying a used disc.
Yeah, I've done that. I bought a lot of games on digital that I already owned.
Yeah. Anyway, Mortal Kombat 11 looks good.
Yeah. Can you still rip out the guy's spine through his mouth?
Incredibly gory. The kill moves are, and they're more gory because, of course, it's much more realistic.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. And it's kind of like a movie. There's I have a thing against this, but there's cutscenes all the time. A lot of cutscenes. But that's
why you need the disc. Are they FMV files?
Oh yeah, but that's it. Michael said it's like a movie.
Yeah. We used to say that in the 90s too.
It's like a movie.
When that chick from Different Strokes was making that stupid Sega game. Whatever the heck that was.
There we go. Just for Paul.
I'm glad you saved the day with
I got a little Xbox in there.
Yeah.
A little Xbox.
My mood has lightened incredibly.
In your life.
It has.
Somebody in the chat room made an excellent point. Ford used to use Microsoft's Windows Car in their Ford Sync. Now they use a real-time operating system, QNX from BlackBerry. And so that's another good reason why Microsoft should be in the RTOS business.
They're RTOSing it up.
A little belatedly, but yes.
Yeah, it might be a little too late.
No, they used to do Windows, right? They had Windows in cars.
Yeah, it was Windows
and then
Car.
Windows Embedded, Windows Automotive. Yeah. And then, they were like, you know what? Maybe instead we should do connected services and not that.
I think the problem for Microsoft wasn't so much Windows Automotive as it was just the sync software they had made for Ford was terrible.
Yeah.
Was that from Microsoft or was that Ford's fault?
I think it was Microsoft's fault. I think Microsoft made it.
So Ford Sync, which I had in my Mustang, I loved. And then they added
two versions
Ford
of it, right? So,
Touch.
Yeah.
And that was awful.
The very first version of Ford Sync was supposed to be terrible. I guess they finally got it right.
I loved Ford Sync. It did everything the way it should. It used voice. This was before you could get, Android Auto or Apple's CarPlay. So it was really nice to have that feature. I thought it worked really well. But then they added My Ford Touch, and everybody agreed that it was just unusable. And I wonder where that came from. That probably didn't come from Microsoft, I'm guessing.
Anyone who's used Bluetooth in a car would probably agree that something more sophisticated is necessary. My daughter wrecked her car, so she's using our car. We're renting a car, and it has this Bluetooth stuff that my wife's car doesn't have. And every time I get in the car, it starts playing something from my phone, even though I wasn't just playing something on my phone, which I find incredibly annoying. But my favorite feature of this car is when I pull into the driveway, it connects to her phone in the house, and if she's on the phone call goes through the car.
Yeah,
and I hung up on people.
I know.
I don't understand why you would ever want that, but that's how it works.
Yeah. And also, this turns out my son is crazy like a fox, because if you pre-order any version of Mortal Kombat 11 at GameStop, you'll receive Shao Kahn as a playable character. He also got a pre-order bonus, an exclusive.
Does he come on a floppy disk?
He was playing Shao Kahn, so I know that was one of the things. You also get an exclusive tin box and scorpion neck wrap. Crazy like a fox.
Boy, I am not a big fan of the collectibles things. Like the.
He's 16. He probably.
Yeah, no, I know.
He's probably going to use the tin box for his lunch, his school lunch.
Sure.
Wait a minute. Or if you order today, you'll also get this bound copy of Myst,
that's amazing. Yeah,
the game, featuring a built-in screen on which you can play Myst.
Come on. Is that really a screen?
Yeah, it's lighting up. It takes a while to boot.
Sure.
And also,
it's not running a real-time OS.
No, there it is. There's Myst, the game.
Myst was nice because it showed you how slow early DVD or CD players were.
Yeah.
Remember this thing used to just play off the CD?
Wasn't it written in HyperCard originally? I can't remember.
I think you might be right. Yeah, on the Mac.
Our show today. Thank you. That's Alex Gumpel's very special collectible. Because
Alex, next to his Harry Potter books.
Yes, it goes to GameStop. Don't be knocking the Potter. The hot new game, the hot game of the week is the year is out in New Zealand. It's coming to Australia apparently any day now. Harry Potter Wizards Unite. When that comes out, and of course it's iPhone or Android, but when that comes out, you will not see me for weeks. And when I come back, I'll be going like this. Flipendo. Flipendo. I'll be a little, and my eyes will be a little.
So here's a fun fact, actually, you'll be dealing with soon again, as you look for colleges for your son. Every college we go to advertises the fact that they have a Quidditch team as if, no, I'm serious. They think that they're like quirky and unique. And
they all have one.
I get it. Like the kids who are going to college now grew up on Harry Potter. These movies have been done for 10 years, guys. No one cares. But like Quidditch is a thing.
It's hot. Quidditch is hot. And by the way, the worst game ever designed. If you actually ever tried to play Quidditch, you would realize even if you can fly on a broomstick, it's a terrible game.
Right. If you could actually fly, okay.
But
maybe
Quidditch,
MIT can figure something out.
Let's not get deep into the weeds here, but just briefly.
Well, actually, what you're suggesting is these guys are running around like playing horses.
No, they do. They have fake broomsticks.
Yeah. So in other words, it's a broomstick with a horse's head on it, except there's no horse's head.
It's the hobby horse thing, right?
It's like playing polo with a hobby horse.
I just looked it up. I'm like, what?
But here's why it's a terrible game. You can play for hours, scoring here and there. The game is over, and the team wins that catches the snitch. So no matter what you've been doing for the last 3 hours, whoever catches the snitch wins. It's over. And it's sudden death. It's like, that's it. The game's over. You lost, even if you had 1,000 points.
Okay.
It's a game designed by a person who doesn't.
Just called, and you're a fraud. What? I mean,
excuse me, but this is not a real game. This is a game for wizards and witches.
You are clearly not a wizard or a witch.
Or neither, my friend.
Our show today, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take you down, man.
Oh, God.
Our show today brought to you by somebody who's got something more serious on the mind. Atlassian. Honestly, if you think about it, your IT department is made up of exactly the kind of people you think it's made up of, and I love them. I mean, I'm a nerd I'm all way down. It's important. We think a lot about our tools, right? Our tool chains. It's important to have the right tools. And I also occasionally have to put on the boss hat. It's important for stakeholders like customers, colleagues, and the boss to know what you've done. This is why we use Atlassian. It starts with Jira, which is a great project manager. And sometimes people say, oh, no, that's for agile software development. No, well, it is, certainly. No agile team would dream of not using Jira. But it also is used for any project to keep track of where the project stands, who's on it, what they're working on right now. And it's so satisfying. You slide it over to that completed column. You get this great feeling. It also works with Confluence. We use both. So our IT projects are in the Jira board, but also they use Confluence to document what they've done. And this is why I love Atlassian, because it's really about workflow and communication and making sure the job gets done right. And man, nowadays with cloud-based businesses, IT is the center of the universe. You know, nothing can happen if something's gone wrong. IT teams have to plan and execute better and faster than ever. You know, apps are more complicated. The network is more complicated, so incidents require some real collaboration between ops and software development teams, and the stakes are high. IT, you know, is shouldering a pretty big burden. That's why I'm telling you about this, and that's why we use Atlassian tools. The IT department loves it, and as a stakeholder, I love it too. And again, I just want to emphasize, not just for developers. Atlassian has an affordable, boss doesn't mind paying for this. It's very affordable, reliable. So the team loves it. Suite of tools for teams of all kinds and all sizes, from DevOps to Agile to IT apps to Ops to ITSM and whatever is next. Atlassian is the technology backbone that helps modern IT organizations plan, service, and support exactly the kind of change that propels your business. So there's Jira, there's Confluence. If you've got a code base, there's Bitbucket. Awesome. There's Ops stuff. There's Ops Genie and Status Page, so you can better detect incidents, coordinate response efforts, resolve issues faster, keep everybody up to date. And because it all works together with Jira and Confluence, communication is kind of handled. You don't have to leave the tool to say, oh, here's what I did. It's all there. And I think that's super important for documenting the steps you took for future generations to say, well, what happened? How does this work? What's the workflow? Like all of Atlassian's products, the tools for your team are easy and free to try, and that's really big. Head to Atlassian.com/IT and find the Atlassian offerings that are right for your team. They're great software. I'm proud to say we're at Atlassian house. Try Atlassian today to see what IT can be. That's Atlassian.com/IT, Atlassian.com/IT. We thank them so much for their support of Windows Weekly. Now we head back to Thurrott land for our tip of the week.
Before we do that, do we have an update on our build plans, Mary Jo?
Yeah, it's looking like Monday 1 to 3
awesome.
Pacific.
Perfect for me. I hope that works for you, and we're going to get to use the Campbell Theater.
Yeah, Campbell's set up his own studio, he said. So
yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
And I said this on the air, and I meant it. A bottle of Abudna is on its way to you.
Wow.
We'll let him know.
And I'm going to get it there before the event so he can share it.
Share it with us while we're doing the show.
It's really good. I got that because of him, and it is really good.
He thought I was unintelligible without being under the influence of
everybody. You know, this is cast strength. You know what cast strength means?
Let me tell you something about Credge.
Actually, tell us something about Credge.
Yeah, actually, I think I will. Actually, that's an interesting segue. So, yeah, the tip of the week is if you are using the new Edge, Credge, on your PC, you can now sync your favorites, because remember, that's the only thing that's syncing, to the mobile version of Edge, and you just have to go in and enable that. So if you go into settings and you find your user account and click on that, there's a sync setting called sync. And basically from there, you can just choose between Microsoft Edge, which is the shipping version of Edge, right? The classic Edge, and Microsoft Edge Insider Channels, which of course is Credge. And so I just made the switch today. There's nothing, major to report there as far as what that's like, because obviously you've probably already imported your favorites anyway, so it's probably not going to make too many changes. But if you did use the browser to make changes to any of your favorites on the phone, those will actually sync back to the new Credge, which is kind of cool. So it's only in Android right now, and like I said, it's only favorites, but that's going to change.
Is the sync through your Microsoft account? Is that how it knows?
Yeah, that's right.
So that's one argument for using your Microsoft account on all your devices.
Yeah, I mean, the way, you have to. Yeah, if you want to sync anything, you obviously have to sign into an account. Today, Microsoft account is the only choice. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say there.
But we all have one. We all have one. So.
Yeah. You all have one. You might as well use it. And then Mary Jo is actually going to do the app pick this week. Believe it or not.
What? Well, I gotta fix the button. Okay, there we go.
The app pick of the week is PWA Builder 2.0.
What?
This is Microsoft's progressive web app builder tool that they open sourced when they first introduced it, and they're building it in the open with the community.
Is it a Visual Studio plugin? What is it?
No, it's a tool that takes your website and turns it into an app. So if you go to pwabuilder.com, you can see it, I believe. It has a new design.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Snippets.
So it comes from the site.
Right. New things they call snippets, which integrate web programming interfaces, things like the Microsoft Graph. They've now got Mac desktop support driven by WebKit for PWA Builder. So they have a whole list of new features, and it's very interesting timing given that Build is coming up, and some of the sessions at Build are going to be focused on PWAs.
It better be.
Better be. Yeah, I've been looking at the schedule. There are a number of PWA sessions on Wednesday at Build that I've seen. A few that are showing up in the schedule builder.
Wow,
I think I'm actually going to get to some sessions this year.
You enter your URL and it does it?
That's the idea.
This must test whether it's a valid PWA.
It gives you
perhaps.
A score. Yeah, it gives you a score, like how good your PWA could be and what things you could add. Suggestions for adding to your app.
This is really interesting. Wow.
Yep.
All right.
And Microsoft earnings are coming out right now.
Oh, are
you serious? Like right now?
Yeah, I'm seeing people start to tweet.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up then.
That's all right. We have some more things going on.
Okay.
We're good.
You should do your enterprise picks fast.
Yep. So that's the app pick, PWA Builder 2.
I scored 0.
Oh, well.
No, I have to generate a manifest. That doesn't surprise me. This is a normal website, so there's no manifest. There's no service workers. I'll create those. You have to do all those things. Yeah. It tells you, kind of guides you what to do. It actually generates a manifest. Oh, it does? Nice. Yeah. Nice. Very handy. What the what? Very nice. Okay, so that's app pick. Enterprise pick, I've got 2 of them. Number 1 is there's a thing happening this Saturday called the Global Online Azure Bootcamp. And it's a free event. All you have to do is sign up. It's being broadcast on YouTube. It's 24 hours of deep dive classes about Azure and cloud computing. And it's all created by the MVP community and others in that Azure world. So it's community-based content. If you want to sign up, Global Online Azure Bootcamp.wordpress.com. And thank you to Aiden Finn for the pick. Nice. But that's not all. That's not all. Last year, Enterprise Pick 2. Last year, Microsoft said they were working on an experience to help users and partners migrate from G Suite to Office 365. That's all they said. They didn't really give us any more details. But starting this month, Microsoft is rolling out what they're calling the Google G Suite to Office 365 migration tools. I've got a post about this on my blog. They've got some information about how you can set yourself up if you want to do this. There's a frequently asked questions document, and most of this revolves around things you're doing with Exchange, which is not that surprising. Google already has an Exchange migration tool, but this is going to be Microsoft's alternative to that, where you can set yourselves up, have Office 365 dir sync
all available, or you're going to have to do it manually. And there's a step-by-step how you can do this if you want to move yourself or a group of users off of G Suite to Office 365.
So they raised their prices? Is that why people are doing it? Because
some people say expensive. That. Yeah. That's what some people say. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just more Microsoft is always looking for ways to get you off G Suite, right?
It's sensible. Yep. I would do that too. Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. I'm sure Google has something similar in the other direction.
They do. Yep, they do.
Code name.
Got a code name. Code name is Catnip.
A very appropriate code name.
It is. So Catnip is the code name for the Microsoft Windows Insider app that they're building. It's a PWA also.
Of course.
Progressive Web App. And the way I found out about this was when I was looking through the build sessions and I saw the Insider session being hosted by North Face hiker, Jason Howard.
And Chief Taco Hat Officer.
Yes, he also wears taco hats many times on broadcasts. And he just mentions in there, hey, we've got this thing. We told you guys we were working on an Insider app, and we're going to show it to you if you come to my session at Build. And at his session, they're going to talk more about what developers can get out of being part of the Insider program, which is kind of an interesting slant. They actually are offering to integrate your developer content in with the Microsoft Feedback Hub for insiders. So that's kind of a nice little attraction. Like catnip for a cat, perhaps. That's the code pick.
You get to the beer of the week, I'm going to thank the chat room because they're synopsizing the Microsoft results.
Oh, good.
Microsoft revenue, $30.6 billion. Net income, $8.8 billion. Not shabby. Yeah. Office 365 commercial customers, 180 million. This is Brad Sams tweeting this. Surface, so we should really get him into the act. Surface revenue, he's tweeting it in his dinosaur outfit.
Excellent.
Surface revenue, $1.3 billion.
So, by the way, you want the most interesting thing about these earnings are so far?
Yeah.
What?
They've released a new kind of document that I don't believe they've ever released before, which is referred to as it says FY19 Q3 product release list.
And I think they did this last time. Yeah.
I've never seen this before. Okay, so it's just like, here's the stuff we released during the quarter.
This is like the book of news for financial geeks.
That's exactly right.
Right? Yeah. That's handy, though, because a lot of people don't keep up with it like we do. So,
yeah.
Paul tweeted a link to that if you want to see that thing.
Xbox revenue, gaming revenue, $2.3 billion. Xbox Live users, 63 million, up 4 million year to year. Xbox revenue, 30.6. No, I'm sorry. I'm confusing tweets now. Oh, that's the bottom line, I think.
Yeah.
From all of it.
Yeah.
Anything stand out as unusual?
It's looking. Their headline is "Cloud Strength Drives Third Quarter Results," so you know it's going to be all about the commercial cloud.
Yeah.
Again. Yep. Windows
Frank
OEM
says
revenues.
This is the third quarter they've done this.
It's a third quarter.
I don't know. Given how I pour over this stuff, I have no idea. I've never seen that before, but anyway, it's a great idea.
Yeah, it is a great idea.
It's nice revenue, $8.8 billion.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, profit, not $8.8 billion on 30.6.
Wow. Windows OEM revenues are up 9%. Windows commercial products and cloud services, 18%. So Windows didn't have a bad quarter.
Xbox software and services growth year over year, 12%.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a solid quarter. Yeah. As they say on the call that we have to listen to, nice quarter, guys. That's what the analysts always say when they start a question. Right. It's like,
well, let's get the beer out of the way, and then we can go celebrate by listening to a Microsoft earnings call.
Excellent. I'm going to start doing some Seattle beer picks because Build is coming up, and we're all going to be in Seattle.
Yeah.
Today's beer pick is from Cloudburst Brewing. If you're at Build, it's really a short walk to go to Cloudburst Brewing. They're right near Pike Place Market. It's a really cute little space. And they've got some excellent beers that Paul Thurrott would love, mostly IPAs.
Oh, rats.
Wow.
Rats.
I see what's happening here.
They've got one that I have not had it, but I've had one of theirs that's very similar to it. It's called Really Solid Amazing Liquid. It's an IPA with all the best hops, Mosaic, Simcoe, and Amarillo.
Nice. Nice.
And so I'm sure it is an amazing liquid. But if you get to go over to their facility, they have a lot of excellent beers, barley wines, brown ales, all kinds of things on tap. And you'll see their beers around Seattle too. So if you're at a loss when you're at Build what to pick, go with Cloudburst.
I was talking to Uncle Joe, who is our family beer expert.
Yeah.
And of course, we live in IPA land.
You do.
And he said, never buy an IPA at the grocery store, he said. He said, it's got to be fresh. It's got to be kept cold. If at any point it wasn't kept cold, you don't want to drink it. It's going to be too strong, too sour. You want it fresh. You want it to almost be like a lemonade if it's straight. That's why you got to go to Lagunitas or to Cold Brew or whatever it's called. And Cloudburst. Yep. And drink it out of the tap. Don't even put it in a glass. Just put your mouth under the tap and get it fresh.
That's the best.
Uncle Joe knows. We have come to the end of this show. Unfortunately, Paul and Mary Jo now have to go to work.
Yep.
What a weird day. Your breakdown of those results next episode. And, of course, the following week, we're going to be doing Windows Week. First, we're going to do the live keynote from Microsoft Build Monday starting 10 a.m. Pacific. That's 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 1700 UTC. Following that, Paul and Mary Jo will be on the stream, which will be a lot of fun. We'll continue to cover the stream, or at least carry the stream while you guys are on. And then shortly thereafter, around about 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 Eastern, 20:30 UTC, an early bird edition of Windows Weekly. That's in 2 weeks. Is that right? It's on a Monday.
It's on a Monday. I think the start time of the keynote is like either 8 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. Pacific.
You're right. I got to get up early. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 8 a.m.
So do we.
You're right. Yeah, we'll be getting up early. Yeah, a lot earlier for you.
Yeah.
No, it's later for you. You guys,
no, but
you
we'll all
shouldn't
be
complain.
jet lagged. We'll all be jet lagged.
Jet lagged in the right direction for a change.
That's true.
We do Windows Weekly Wednesdays normally. Next week it'll be Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. If you want to watch live, twit.tv/live. There's also an audio stream there. If you're consuming the show live, you should be also participating in our chat room because they're all doing the same thing. irc.twit.tv. You can also get on-demand versions of this show and every show we do at our website. twit.tv/WW is the place for Windows Weekly. And best, though, subscribe. Find your favorite podcast application, iTunes or Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or Pocket Casts, whatever you use, and search for Windows Weekly and say, I want to hear that every week. Subscribe on YouTube as well. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jo. You'll find Paul Thurrott at Thurrott.com. His books are at leanpub.com. Mary Jo's at allaboutmicrosoft.com. But you can find him here every Wednesday. And we will talk to you then. Bye-bye from Windows Weekly.